Welcome into A to Z Sports Prime Time, Monday night edition. Hope everybody's having a great start to their week. Got a lot of different things to look at. A short week for the Titans. Well, not really. A short week of work, though, for us to be able to talk about the Titans. So we got to get it in while we can, with only one more show left to do this week after this one. We're going to talk about who is the most difficult opponent left on the Titans' schedule in the AFC. We'll also talk about some of the teams after a fun weekend of football. A brutal interception on a tip drill pass thrown by Colt McCoy that looks like they're blowing it dead in the Monday Night Football game in Mexico City, but not sure what's happening just yet. Looks like there's some flags on the field. Either way, we are going to talk about the AFC. This is an NFC game tonight, and we'll certainly get into the conversation. We got a gone viral video for you as well that is going to make you laugh out loud when you have the opportunity to see it. Before we get started, though, need you guys to share this show on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, Twitch, wherever you're hanging out. If you're on YouTube or Twitch, like Demetrius Moore or William Jones, you can like the video. You can subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already. We would be grateful for you doing so. If you're like Justin or Sean Walker on Facebook Live, you can share now to public in the bottom left-hand corner of your screen. And if you're on Twitter, please retweet the show. That's on the opposite side. It's the bottom right-hand corner of your screen, and your Twitter friends can come hang out with us as well as we get into our initial discussion around the Titans and the Bengals. Deshaun says it has to be the Bengals that you're talking about. Not necessarily. Although it is a significant game coming up this Sunday at Nissan Stadium, and certainly we'll talk about all of those things tonight. We will let's go ahead and get it started. Welcome into A to Z Sports Prime Time on a Monday night from the Superbook Sports Studios. I'm your host, Buck Rising, and I'm proud, as always, to be presented to you by the wonderful people at the Ashton Real Estate Group of RE/MAX Advantage. In fact, Gary Ashton and his team out delivering pumpkin pies in the neighborhood today ahead of Thanksgiving because they're the community people. The official real estate agent of the Preds and me is Gary Ashton and the Ashton Real Estate Group of RE/MAX Advantage at GaryAshton.com. Superbook Sports, your place to wager this season, no matter what sports season it is. Download the Superbook Sports app today. They'll match your first bet up to $1,000, win or lose. TrueMav Fitness, a new way to work out, a better way to work out. The best way to get ahead on your fitness goals is with TrueMav Fitness, your first workout free at TrueMavFitness.com. And Two Rivers Ford, the 2023 model year Fords, available right now at the dealership in Mount Juliet, or you can build your own like I did at TwoRiversFord.com. So, as we look at the Titans' remaining schedule, particularly the AFC opponents, there's a couple of games that stick out. Now, we're in to the latter half of the season. Obviously, there's a lot of stuff that's still up in the air as far as playoff seeding is concerned, but those conversations will start to be had, and have already started to be had over the course of this past weekend, the past couple of weekends. And as you look at the Titans' schedule, what lies ahead, you know that you still have 3 AFC South games left to go. You've got the Bengals coming up at home this weekend before you host the Jags in 3 weeks from now, because you got a Philly road trip in between there. As far as the AFC goes, the Chargers and the Texans are the only other teams on that list. So 2 games against the Jags. You'll finish on the road in week 18. You have the Texans, the Jags at home, and then, of course, the Bengals that is closest on the horizon. Now, of those 4 opponents, I could easily see how many people would look at the Bengals and say that's the toughest game on the schedule. But I'm going to give you some numbers on the Bengals and, frankly, on the Chargers that make those games a little more interesting than I think you might give the other 2 teams, the Jags and the Texans, credit for. Although I did see that the Texans are contemplating a quarterback change, which is not indicative of a place that you want to be when you're in week 12 and thinking about switching things up. Either way, as the schedule is an interesting one, right? Cincinnati, you have the obvious intrigue of the A.J. Brown game in Philadelphia. The Chargers could have done significant damage and, frankly, done the Titans a helping hand had they been able to hang on to their lead last night against the Chiefs. But Patrick Mahomes and Travis Kelce and the crew doing miraculous things yet again, because you just can't stop those guys. So the Chargers in a bit of a perilous position as well, as they try and continue to jockey for a wild card spot. Houston, we know to be a bit of a misery, and I don't necessarily know how to feel about the Jags game. Jags obviously aren't a good football team right now. They've got a lot of work to do. But the Jags, just because we haven't seen them against the Titans and this Doug Peterson coaching staff, I do think that is a bit of an unknown, even if the Jags are, their deficiencies are clear and obvious to everybody. So we'll start with your Two Rivers Ford take. Which remaining AFC opponent are you most concerned about? The Bengals, Chargers, Texans, or Jags? We'll talk about it together right after I remind you that the Two Rivers Ford take is made possible by Two Rivers Ford. That's the place that you go for the best car buying experience. There is no question that Two Rivers Ford will go above and beyond for you, just as they do for every customer or potential customer that considers doing business with them. The 2023 model year Fords, they're out right now, and they are spectacular. Looks like a touchdown for the 49ers, and it's a touchdown for you anytime you look at a new vehicle or purchase a new vehicle, courtesy of Two Rivers Ford. They always make it fast, easy, and fun, so give one of their non-commissioned salespeople a call, 1-800-900-1000, or just go out to the dealership like I did. TwoRiversFord.com as well is where you can go. So of the four teams remaining, the Jags twice and the Texans, Chargers, and Bengals all up ahead, who poses the greatest threat? Who are you most concerned about at this point? Denise says the Chargers are looking decent. Decent, yes. And they have played one-score games every time Mahomes and Herbert get together. And Mahomes, it's fascinating. Mahomes has never lost a divisional road game in his career. Think about how crazy that is to say. But the Chargers, they do look like a competent football team. Their health is very much in question, and Herbert's struggles are significant behind an offensive line that's dealt with a lot of injuries. Chargers, another team having to survive a fair amount of injuries. Their starting left tackle also lost for the season, just like the Titans. So it's not necessarily an uncommon refrain. But between those two, because it's probably those two, right? The Bengals or the Chargers, you have a pretty good grasp of what the Texans are. I would say the Jags are probably third on that list, with the Texans at the bottom. I'm more concerned about Philly. I just want that W, says Bald and Bearded on YouTube. Yeah, but I mean, I get it. You're out for blood. You want A.J. Brown to take an L. You want it to be to your team. But in the larger scheme of things, I just think they don't care as much about the Eagles game as you care about the Eagles game. Now, they care about every game. Mike Vrabel's going to want to win that game. It's not like Nick Sirianni is obviously, a bit of an irritant, which is fun to see. I kind of like the attitude that he's got about him. I'm sure it grades on a lot of opposing fan bases, but still, the Philly game is as irrelevant as any game on that, as irrelevant as any game that they have remaining, right? They have two NFC opponents. I don't care really about the Dallas game. The Philadelphia game is going to be interesting just because of the storylines that'll come out of that, but it's so much less important than these conference games and the three divisional games that you have remaining, even if the teams that you're playing against suck. Deshaun says the Bengals game worries me because it's an here we go again type of moment. Well, and that's something that Ryan Tannehill's given voice to, right? The idea of being in a dark place after the way that their season ended, and needing not necessarily, I don't know that he would say that he needed to go to therapy, but he found speaking to somebody about it helpful, which is, of course, mental health at the forefront, especially when it comes to performance and things of that nature. There's so many different ways that can be affected. So good on him. And Derrick Henry talked about the same thing, for what it's worth. So I think for all of that, the Chargers game is a road game. The travel to the West Coast is always kind of up in the air. The Titans didn't have a problem with that last time when they did the SoFi trip to beat the Rams on Sunday Night Football. Chargers, I don't know how I feel about Justin Herbert. I think he's really good, but he keeps losing these damn games. So at a certain point, how good is he actually, or is he just continuing to run into the buzzsaw that is Mahomes within that division? So with all these, with all this being said, I would say the Bengals game is probably the most pressing, not just because it's the closest on the horizon, but because there is a injury situation that it looks like could help benefit them make some plays where they've been missing playmakers in their passing game.
The Cincinnati Bengals play the Steelers today. Jamar Chase, the Bengals star receiver, not playing, but he is coming. My understanding, this labral strain, complicated hip injury that he has been dealing with, is improving, and a recent doctor's appointment delivered some very good news. He is now off crutches, has a chance to practice this week, and actually has a chance to play this week as well. Finally, after missing about a month or a little bit more, there is some optimism about the status of Jamar Chase.
So the Bengals never placed Jamar Chase on IR for exactly that reason, because they felt optimistic that they may be able to get him back before 4 games. Now it'll be a very much wait and see proposition, it sounds like, throughout the course of this week. But the Bengals have the better weapons. The Bengals have the more successful quarterback. I think you could argue who's better between Herbert and Burrow, but certainly Burrow has been more successful as a quarterback so far to this point in their respective careers. So I would say that game, given everything that all the trauma that'll come back up, right? Everything from the divisional round, with the Titans getting 9 sacks, should have been 11 on Joe Burrow, losing a game where they held him without a touchdown because of the 3 interceptions and the mistakes that were made. It was a really, really difficult loss, I know, for a lot of you guys to deal with. I remember talking to people at the first preseason game, the first preseason home game in Nissan Stadium. And, a lot of people that came up to me, maybe some of you guys were among them. It's always great to see people who listen to the radio show or watch the primetime show. It was basically, I haven't been in here. This is the first time in here since the Bengals game. And people legitimately shook up by the idea of, God, how that felt when that ended. Deshaun says, I was ready to break my TV. I'm sure you're not alone, right? There's a lot of pent up anxiety about this particular game. Even though the situation has obviously changed, the defense will still be in a position to go out and win this game. And if last week was any kind of sign of progress, their best performance against a Packers team that's not great by any stretch of the imagination, obviously, by their record, and they've struggled in a couple of different critical areas this year. Bengals are a better football team, but can you give them a game? Can you keep pace? Can you score? Because 19-16 is not a way that you want to exist. I understand that you take a win no matter what it looks like in the postseason, but this is not the postseason. This is the regular season, and they need to go on and handle business the way that they did not do in January of this year. So we'll read more of your comments here in just a second, right after I remind you that Superbook Sports is your place to wager this football season, every season, whether it's college football, pro football, the NBA, or college basketball. The NHL available for you to bet right now, too. Superbook Sports is where you go. They'll match your first bet up to $1,000, win or lose, in the app. Download it today. Real clean, real easy to use. All kinds of great odds boosts and promotions. You can select the Tennessee tab. You can get better deals and better odds, better promo bets right there on your favorite local teams. Grizzlies, Preds, Titans, whatever you desire. Superbook Sports is where you go. Superbook.com for terms and conditions. Gambling problem? Call the Tennessee Red Line, 1-800-889-9789. So, Demetrius says, I honestly think this Bengals game, Tannehill will step up huge. Well, listen, he will be asked the toughest questions this week. It will be brought up, the idea that he told us about the therapy that he underwent after the season ended. It will be because his performance was a legitimate failure by any stretch of the imagination. And if you are looking for their greatest source of failure, his turnovers would be the thing that you would highlight. It was shocking to see them fall that flat in a big spot with so many opportunities. The defense gave them every opportunity. The defense continued to make plays, both in the rush. They got a turnover. They intercepted Joe Burrow. And still, the Titans, on the first offensive play of the game, threw a pick. The Titans on the last offensive play of the game for them threw an interception. So how he handles it, only he can answer that. And I'm sure he's not going to give a lot of life to it this week. But as Eric Alonso correctly says, or rather I saw somebody say, William Jones, I just hope he doesn't start seeing ghosts. And then Eric adds with a ghost is Jesse Bates. Yes. Jesse Bates reading that interception in the red zone all the way home for a considerable return. That one was particularly brutal because you got all the way down there. The first interception, you said, okay, horrendous way to start the game, but the defense kept them in it. You get down in the red zone again, you throw the pick. That one, I think, was really the soul crusher. The second one was brutal. Jamal Mills says Mixon might be out with a concussion. Yeah, I would anticipate him not playing, but hopefully he, for his sake, hopefully it's manageable and he is back whenever he is able to be back. Of course, the concussion stuff is always scary. Ben Jones is somebody who is also going to be continued to be monitored given the concussion situation for him. So you hope that Ben is doing okay as well. This game matters, but it don't, says Mr. Stokes. Postseason is where we need to worry about him. No, but it does matter. It absolutely matters. It is a conference game, right? You want to win conference games because of playoff positioning that you're jockeying for. You already lost one to the Chiefs. You don't want to give the Bengals an additional leg up on you when it comes to postseason seeding. You don't want to give more life to these teams who will directly impact your postseason position as you try and stack these conference wins, improve your own record. Of course, right now, if the playoffs started today, I believe it would be New England traveling to Tennessee to play the Titans, which would be probably an ugly game. It would be an ideal matchup, though, right now, as the Titans have a pretty firm grasp on the 2 seed, with Buffalo falling back to the pack. Miami, though, the Titans currently the 3 seed. Miami and Kansas City continuing to widen their margin of victory against these conference opponents. Chase off crutches. He has a chance to play. Scary, considering Fulton might not play, says Ken Caniff. Why wouldn't Christian play? Oh, I guess he did have a reoccurrence of the hammy situation in Green Bay, didn't he? Trey Avery, I thought, played pretty well, but you don't. Trey Avery against Jamar Chase is not something you want to, not something I would imagine you want to experience. So we'll see what, again, the Titans practice schedule different this week. Normally they are off on Tuesdays. Obviously, because of Thanksgiving, they want to give players time with their family. So Tuesday, Wednesday, Friday is the practice schedule. So we'll see what Fulton's status is starting tomorrow. All right, let's talk about who the best 7-3 team is right now in the AFC, or rather who in the AFC has surprised you the most this season. We will discuss together in the comment section on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and on Twitch who in the AFC has surprised you most this NFL season. Your responses, as well as my own, coming up here in just a second, right after I remind you, True Math Fitness is the place that will remind you to get your fitness journey started today. It's never too late. Now is the opportunity. You can work on your summer body at the most important time around the holiday season when the temptation is high. If you're going to be eating a lot of turkey, pumpkin pie, all these different things, that's okay. That's the time that you get to enjoy it. But you got to make sure that you're sticking with your goals at TrueMathFitness.com. Their classes are fantastic. Their personal training, even better if you are somebody who does not necessarily enjoy the class workout atmosphere. I happen to like it. I happen to like the amount of energy that it brings and the way that the boot camp style classes they have keep you moving, keep you engaged, keep you rotating around so it doesn't become monotonous, and they're efficient. You get out of there in just about 40 minutes. True Math Fitness is where you go for to find out what their different levels of membership are, or for your first workout free as a Middle Tennessee resident, go to TrueMathFitness.com. So, as we talk about the AFC and the way the playoff seeding looks right now, there's a couple of different things that have been surprising. Jonathan Caverly says the Jets have been the most surprising. The Jets quarterback situation, Robert Saleh made comments today that sounds like it's very much open for them to make a quarterback change. Def McDaniels and Tua, says Stephen King. Tyreek and the Deadly Finns. Pittsburgh, says Lewis. Surprising, I guess, in terms of how bad they've been, right? They're 3-7 on the year thus far. It's been a really difficult slog for them. Mike Tomlin's never had a losing season. Looks like he may be on the verge of his first one as the Pittsburgh head coach. So maybe you find that element of it surprising. Buffalo, with the way they beat us, and Kansas City, to see them out of hosting a playoff game. But hey, I'm cool with that, says Noji Pierre. Yes, Buffalo kind of coming back to earth a little bit. They got a good conference win. I mean, it's not a good conference win. The Browns are a bad team. They got to win a conference win against the Browns, which should help kind of fortify their position. But the AFC East is tight. The Patriots are over 500. The Dolphins are leading the division. The Bills are obviously, doing what they've been able to do. And the Jets, while they did lose this weekend, are sneaky good enough to cause you problems. So the margin for error is very thin. But I don't know how you couldn't look. I mean, you may have thought that the Dolphins were going to be better, but not this kind of better. Not with how much better Tua Tagovailoa has been, just simply by nature of coaching that's helpful to him.
In sole possession in first place. Okay, but Miami, you've been high on Miami all year long. You think they stay atop that division?
Can I interest you in this, Carissa?
Please.
First in passer rating.
Okay.
Second in completion percentage.
Okay.
Third in passing yards per game. 18 touchdown passes to 3 interceptions. Can I interest you in that?
From right
Look, the menu looks good.
You're right. So you talk about the Jets if they win there and so.
But do they maintain?
But guess what? Guess what though? We're going to continue to win. Down there with the Dolphins. I told you, I'm in the ocean. I'm riding the Dolphins, and in the Atlantic,
Pacific,
right? And guess who we have last game of the season at home? The Jets. Okay. Huh? Miami Dolphins continue to roll. No, they're competitive, but they're not going to beat the Dolphins. You know what? Tua didn't play the first matchup. Okay?
He did.
You got that right.
Last
game of the season.
Tua is an MVP candidate right now.
Thank you, man. Thank you.
Okay, so you're still riding high with the Dolphins.
I'm still riding high with the Dolphins.
Okay, well, Shregs is our
we trust.
New York guy.
So that is Charles Woodson and the Fox pregame crew, or halftime crew, depending on when that show aired, talking about the Dolphins. They have been spectacular. Truly they have. And the Dolphins, I mean, Tua had a concussion. Teddy Bridgewater had a concussion. And those are the games that they lost, right? They haven't shown many flaws since they've been back and healthier thus far. So I would say that the Dolphins, probably the most surprising and the scariest of any of these teams who you may potentially see in the postseason, depending on how the seeding situation works. A to Z Sports Prime Time is what you're watching right now. Superbook Sports Studio is where it comes to you from. Let's do a gone viral video to get this thing wrapped up on a Monday night. The question that we are going to pose to you is this: if you could invent an NFL stat to track, what would it be? It's an interesting question, and I'm going to explain to you. There's a comedic purpose on the other side of these things here in just a second. It's ridiculous. We're only 10 games in. There's a lot of football left. Let's see who is hot the last 4 or 5 games. What's ridiculous? I'm confused. What do you, MB? You so rarely, what's the word? Ridiculous seems like strong terms. Ridiculous in terms of what? The Dolphins? That they've been surprising? Dolphins have been great. I don't think there's nothing ridiculous about saying that the Dolphins are one of the scariest teams in football this year. The offense is spectacular, and nobody really has had the answer to it other than concussing both quarterbacks. So unless I'm missing something, or unless you're carrying on dialogue with somebody else, ridiculous is not how I would describe that. But speaking of the ridiculous, if you could invent an NFL stat to track, what would it be? Give me your answer on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, Twitch. We'll talk about it together right after I remind you that the place that you need to go for the best experience humanly possible is the Ashton Real Estate Group of RE/MAX Advantage. The intel edge you need to succeed can be found at GaryAshton.com. They are the official real estate agent of the Nashville Predators. They helped put Preds head coach John Hines in his dream address. They did the same for John Robinson and Mike Vrabel. They did the same for me, and they can do the same for you, no matter what your goals are. If you are looking for a new home, they will get you your dream address. If you are looking to sell your home, they will get you the intel edge you need to sell for more and then find your next one in this red-hot Nashville real estate market. There's a reason the Ashton team is the team that your favorite teams trust. Go to GaryAshton.com for the best in the business and to get that intel edge. So what is a rule that you would invent in an NFL, or a stat that you would invent, rather, not a rule, but a stat that you would invent that you would want to keep track of? Kyle Severin says passing yards that doesn't include yak for quarterbacks. That is a good, well, they kind of do have that, right? Air yards. So that is, I think, in theory, what that stat is supposed to measure. Stephen King says, I've always wanted them to count the extra 10 yards of the end zone onto stats. So if they caught the touchdown 7 yards into the end zone on a 15-yard catch, it would be 22. Yeah, they do it for kickoffs and punt returns. So I don't know why they don't count the end zone yardage on touchdowns at this point. But I do think that they are a pretty interesting case study, or that rather that's an interesting distinction. I don't know why they differentiate between counting those return yards on a return or a score, but not counting it on a touchdown reception or a rushing touchdown. I'm not sure why that would be. Well, I guess the rushing touchdown wouldn't matter because it's just about crossing the plane. But you understand my point. No, the rule that or the stat that I would want to invent to keep track of is a stat that has already been invented. How many more touchdown passes does Russell Wilson have throughout the course of a season versus how many bathrooms are in him and Ciara's home? This is something that apparently an individual on TikTok started tracking, and the results over the course of the last couple of weeks have been laugh out loud funny.
Hey, people keep asking me how they can actually bet on whether Russell Wilson will throw as many touchdown passes as he has bathrooms in his house. As far as I know, there's no one taking this bet. Obviously, I can't personally because I don't have the funds to do that. But if we could somehow get this as a prop bet somewhere, I will be the first person putting money down on bathrooms. So I really don't know what to do. I'm going to tag my boy Trent, book it with Trent. Maybe he can help. I don't know. But if we could get Barstool, FanDuel, DraftKings, BetMGM, Caesars, anyone to make this a bet, Russell Wilson versus bathrooms, I am in. So let me know if you're in too, if you would take the bathrooms or Russell Wilson, because I'm interested to see who thinks he's actually going to hit the number.
So Russell Wilson has 12 bathrooms in his home. And obviously Russell Wilson, they just lost in overtime to the Raiders. It's been a disaster there for Nathaniel Hackett and the Broncos. I would think he gets fired at the end of the season. It's been just such a mess. But, 12 bathrooms, 12 touchdown passes, not necessarily easy to come by. Ryan Tannehill, for example, does not yet have 12 touchdown passes on the season, and we are in week 12. Now, he also missed 2 games, but still, Russell has missed a little time. But, through week 6, it was interesting to see where the situation lay at that point.
Hey, welcome back to tracking how long it takes Russell Wilson to throw as many touchdown passes as he has bathrooms in his house. Last night was the 6th game of the season, and he threw 1 touchdown pass, bringing his season total to 5 touchdown passes. Meanwhile, the amount of bathrooms at his house has remained steady at 12 bathrooms, which means that he needs to throw 7 more touchdown passes in order to hit that elusive number of bathrooms in his house. I know we are all excited to see if he will hit that before the end of the season.
So that was week 6. This is an arduous journey that our friend has embarked upon. Now, the Broncos played and lost in overtime this most recent Sunday, yesterday. And we got a week 11 update on the bathrooms versus Russell Wilson touchdowns.
Hey, we've got big news in the tracking how long it takes Russell Wilson to throw as many touchdown passes as he has bathrooms in his house saga. Today was week 11, and Russell Wilson played the Raiders. He did not have any touchdown passes. This means that his total on the season will remain at 7 touchdown passes. Meanwhile, at his and Ciara's home, they also did not add or remove any bathrooms. This means that number also stayed the same at 12. Bathrooms are growing ever more confident by the day that they have this season on lock. Congratulations, Bathrooms, on a great week.
It's honest. The deadpan delivery, I think, makes it so much better for me. It's so great. LOL, this is gold, says Stephen King. That's what I'm saying. Like, how that would come into somebody's head, I don't know. But that's why I'm grateful for the internet. It is fantastic at this point. I literally just saw some Titans fans say Tannehill gets extended this offseason. Total crack up. Oh, no, I think it's entirely possible that they extend Ryan Tannehill. or certainly, well, I think it's entirely possible that they extend Ryan Tannehill. I also think it's entirely possible that they let him play out the final year of his contract as opposed to moving on from him, because now everybody's seeing what Malik is, and you don't have a better option necessarily until a better quarterback becomes available, or you have a better draft situation to go and get a quarterback. Anyway, it's going to do it for us tonight on the Primetime Show. Radio show tomorrow from 10 to 1 on 104.5 The Zone. We are going to have a lot of fun. Mike Vrabel will speak to the media for the first time ahead of the Bengals game, and we'll carry that live for you. And certainly we'll have a lot of Titans and Bengals talk. I've got some stats that you can check out on what Titans matchup must be won against the Bengals on Sunday. That's available for you at AtoZSports.com, where me and so many other of my great colleagues write their material. Have a great rest of your evening. If I don't talk to you on the radio at 10, I will talk to you tomorrow at 8 p.m. Central Time on A to Z Sports Primetime.
All right, we haven't scored a point since I came in here. I am gone, guys.
What? That's it? We got a couple more questions. No, that's it?
Peace out by the GM.